Welcome back, everybody, to the You Ask, We podcast, the show where you ask the questions, they answer them, and I'm just the guy in the middle. Today, we have an awesome guest for our first in-person episode this season. He is a former first-place winner in men's physique, and now he uses his focus to create authentic, truthful, and powerful individuals by awakening them to their reality, whether that be done by analyzing their relationships, emotions, habits, you name it. Naftali is there to talk all about it. So I want to give a warm welcome to my man, Naftali Moses. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing exceptional. Wow, what an opening, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
well, I
of course.
recognize it's like I have this little paragraph on my website. So, yeah, I do create powerful, authentic individuals.
Yeah, it's like I had to use it for the bio, you know?
No,
it's like that's the tagline,
yeah.
you know?
Wonderful.
So, yeah, the way the show pretty much works is everyone submits, like, questions to, like, ask you, and they want to hear your insight, your intellect on all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question actually always comes from me, and that's just, what's new?
What's new?
You know?
Well, honestly, I'm living life again. That's what's new.
It's good.
I mean, of course, thank God my business is blessed. I think everything in my life has been blessed, and I've been really focusing on me and realizing how actually difficult that is. Learning how to reward myself, and I think more importantly, learning how to develop a relationship between me and God where I'm not always transactional every 5 minutes. I love what I can get from me, and that was something that scared me for a long time. It was what I can get from me is so damn powerful. What I can get by believing in God is so damn powerful, but truth be told, I didn't give a shit about me, and I just used God for some sort of power trip. So that's what happened recently. That's what's new. And thank God I've actually found a relationship. And now all I'm trying to do is show up for that relationship, because over the last year, if I said I was the most happy, exuberant individual, that's a lie. I was somebody who was deeply struggling and denying that struggle. And when I was able to just face that struggle and accept that I was doing my best, and I don't want to rush it. And
Well, that's
somehow
good.
through that, that's what's new. And thank God I feel new. I feel reborn.
That's great, man. And I'm happy for you. That's awesome. So we're going to get into some questions now that people submitted. And these first few questions are actual questions about you yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this first question comes from Nur, and she's actually curious how your coaching program works. Like, how is it structured? Is it one-on-one?
Mm-hmm.
How does it all work?
There's as you say, the overall, you get a self-help person. It's usually a one-on-one thing, right? Mm-hmm. What makes this different is that a lot of the time people like generalized truth because it brings them to the service. And then they think they're going to continuously get generalized truth. But the truth is everything that we do is customized to the client. So not everybody gets a one-on-one, because one-on-ones won't suit them. Sometimes they need a group. They need to have the ability to communicate and express themselves to many people that are in the same situation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they need to already start getting out of their own comfort zone, and being in a group is a great way to do that. And then there's other people who need one-on-ones. So everything we do is situationally based. A lot of the time people always think they're broken. They come in there and they're like, hey, help me out. My life's a big fucking mess. Or there's one part of my life that's a mess. Usually when we can specify what exactly we're going to work on with the client, that's when we can guarantee the results. So we're not just here to go ahead and say, hey, welcome to our counseling, welcome to our therapy, welcome to our coaching. Well, you're going to be here for 2 years. We're going to quantify the time, and we're going to guarantee the results. And the reason why we can do that is because we're trying to really narrow in on the client and what that client needs. And if we cannot help them, we will send them out. And what makes this unique is that we're trying to make sure that that person is fully committed to the change, because we will be too. It's not just them, it's going to be us. And they're going to be the ones making the change in their life. And I'll be the ones guiding them appropriately, being able to identify the actual problem, because that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm just supposed to guide them. And after I can guide them to that point, there's an action that they have to take. And I can provide the action and the game plan in order for them to create that big breakthrough. But most importantly, it's about realizing that that person and me have both identified the issue, and that we solve it together. And we have a whole program that's customized to it, whether it's a group, whether it's a shared session, or whether it's a one-on-one with me, or even sometimes it'll be in person in Los Angeles with me. And that's a very particular client.
I mean, it's cool that you cater to the individual too, because like, I mean, me personally, myself, I feel like one-on-one might be a little bit too deep.
Yeah,
so it might
sometimes
like
you don't
not
need
help.
that.
So, but it's like, yeah, it's good you cater to the individual. Like some people need that, some people don't. Some people need something else. Like everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the whole thing. Everybody's different, and
Mm-hmm.
I really think that to be honest with you, there are 3 things I hated growing up: pickup artists, motivational speakers, and coaches. Mm-hmm. I got into this by pickup artistry, and then whatever you want to call it, inherently just helping men approach women, and then motivational speaking, I thought it was the cringy shit of all time. I'm like, why do people need motivation, right? And it's like, now it makes sense to me. And then coaching. And the reason why I hated it was really the stigmas that came with all of those things. Always performative, always have some sort of narcissistic character type, and it's never really about helping the people.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things made me ugh. And then now, okay, here I am, right, doing 2 of those things and helping people understand the last one a little bit more. So it's really important that people do understand it has to be individualized. Not everybody needs a one-on-one. And I think that's a lot of the time people think, I need a one-on-one. It's like, no, you don't. It's like what you need is accountability, making sure that you've held yourself accountable for the goals that you want to reach and that you have an understanding of what's really holding you back. And then it's for you to do. Yeah. It's not like there's something about, I think, like the con artist, so to speak, that just tells you the perfect thing that you want to hear, not the truth, which is this is going to take work and you're going to have to show up to yourself for the rest of your life after this. And I'm not accountable for that. You're going to have the belief system that allows you to go into life where you're going to show up for you. I'm just here to show you how damn important it is.
Yeah, that's all it is. And I'm actually glad you brought up the whole mission statement of it all, because this next question actually goes to your own personal mission, which is from Maria. What would you say is your life goal?
Oh my God.
We're getting deep early.
I mean, it's amazing. If you asked me this like 6 months ago, I'd say some sort of cliche. I want to help as many people as I can. I want to spread this message. It's not my message. It's a message from God, which is inherently unifying everybody, waking them up to their humanity, not their reality. It's a little difference. But I think humanity is what we're here to experience. I said that because it made me feel powerful. What I would say now is just my goal is to deepen that relationship between me and God as much as I can and allow it to manifest itself in the world. I think that the messianic complexes, there's no shortage of them, of people that say that they want to change the world. I think everybody does because they want to feel significant. Truth be told, I want to create an authentic life. I want everything to be a manifestation of me. I want my partner to not just be a partner. I want her to be the partner for me. I want my children to not just be children, but our children, our family. I want my work, my expertise, my career to be a reflection of who I am. And I always make sure that everything in my life serves me. So my goal is inherently to just deepen that relationship as much as I can and let it manifest the way that it does, because I believe that's how you change the world. And that is my goal. My goal is to leave an impact much better than the way that I left it.
That's good. And honestly, it all starts within too, because it's like when you want to impact the world, you have to first impact yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and I realized that's exactly where it starts. And actually, my career started skyrocketing the second I stopped making it about them. I started making this about me. And I really think that for anybody that wants to go ahead and maybe it's music or podcast or whatever it is, some sort of creative expression, or even your career, I'd hope that's a creative expression. Do it for you.
Yeah. And it's like that's also what people want. People want to see people get personal too. Mm-hmm. Like that's why, like for example, streamers, right?
Yeah.
They stream pretty much their entire personal life. Like they're in their room and it's like they're streaming in their house. Like they barely have any privacy, but that's why it skyrockets, because you're seeing someone in their real life and you're seeing them for themselves.
And you know what's
interesting?
There is something very scary about that too, which is a lot of people like to exploit their personal lives. But truth be told, all you need to be is authentic to be successful nowadays. Yeah. Everybody's scattered, everyone's moving, everyone's surviving, and then if they get one day to breathe, they'll show you who they really are. But that's an infancy. Who a person really is an infancy. What they were made to be is a developed monster. And I think it's very crazy to see the difference that when most people have an opportunity to be themselves, they are so unfamiliar with it when they see it, but it feels so damn good. And so then they feel like there's no room for it to exist in the world because it's still a child. But you've created this inherently like the survival animal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have to start understanding, which is like, okay, I need to go back to the authentic part and develop that to the same capacity by which I developed my survival mechanisms. And then the day that I do that is the day that I can bring that authenticity into the world and this time have belief in it. I don't really think we're here to just go ahead and survive. You want to experience a real thing one day. You want to find love one day. You want to do something that you want to affect one life positively. After you've done all of those 3 things, you'll know what you can do. You'll have all the belief you need. But I really think people are trying to sustain those things. I want to change the world. I want to have a forever love, and I want to be authentic every day of my life. And it's like all of those things are juvenile and childish. Just show up for all of those 3 things. Do it once, and you will have the belief system that you will need to start anything that you want to do in your life, and it will be incredibly successful. If you change one life, you change the world. That's something, I don't know if you know Alex Rabiba, something he told me. And that was actually something that really helped me out. One of my first clients, alcoholic, suicidal, awful with women, because he was always aggressive. And being able to just show up 100% for one client helped me realize what I can do for others. And now you can do that with yourself too. It gets you really high. And then that's where people start to go, well, you're delusional. And it's like, well, you should see, I've experienced something. I'm going to run with this.
That's great. Also, by the way, shout out Alex Rabiba.
No, absolutely.
That's
Shout
the
out
homie
Alex
from
Rabiba.
back in the day.
It's the guy that made my freaking life make sense.
That's good. So this next question actually goes into pretty much like relationship stuff, because like you pretty much deal with relationship advice a lot. This is from Satish. Like, how do you know so much about relationships? Because like she thinks it's really good. I also think it's great advice.
Wonderful.
Also. So it's like, how do you know so much?
I do believe that there's personality types, right? Some people are exceptional with people. And thank God I'm blessed with that gift to be really good with people and to understand human behavior. I'm also really familiar with male-female dynamics and inherently the importance of those roles, because I know we like to think that we're now transcended the male-female role when that's exactly the absurdity that's affecting people. I think that I don't know that much about relationships. I think I just know more than 99.999% of people. I think the field of relationships is something that goes really deep. And I really think, truth be told, is conceptual understanding. I think a lot of people like to know the how-to. I think you need to be willing to abandon the how-to completely and understand what a relationship really develops. A relationship is designed for two people to come together, to contribute, and to create. And a lot of the time we think that it's just about, oh, this feels good. And it's like, no, there's clearly things that keep people within what you call their frame. When they're within their frame, they're completely connected to their values and they can contribute enough to hold you. Here's a better way to look at it. If a man is holding a woman, and a lot of the time people like to look at relationships going, there's clearly not something going on here, but there's so much about the man that allows the woman to sustain her frame. And if he starts compromising those things, then inherently she starts to realize he's not a man. All of these things that I learned were actually not from reading Freudian psychology books. That was something I did when I was like 12. But the Adam and Eve story will tell you more that you ever need to know about men and women than any other story.
How so?
So here's a really good way to look at it. Inherently, Adam and Eve represent the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And I think that a lot of people like to acknowledge the fact that, well, there's differences in the modern world. I think that there's nothing new under the sun. I think that there's more terms, but the equation results in the same. The simplicity is ever evolving. And because simplicity is evolving, we think it's complex when really it's the same thing. But really we're having more information come in that we can reintegrate into the simplicity. And that's what makes it so rich. And that's what keeps us involved with life without feeling so like as if it's the same thing. It is the same thing, but always evolving. So we have to constantly reintegrate the new information into the same thing. And if we're not doing that, that's when you have chaos. So the Adam and Eve story is really interesting. I said this the other day on a podcast, which is one thing you want to know about men and women is inherently that we're very different, but we are part of the same whole. So when you understand that we're really here to come together as one whole, and we also represent what inherently that represents masculine and feminine together, being a pure reflection of what God is too, which is a combination of masculine and feminine, and that we embody them as conscious beings, or as even what you call man and woman. We are called man. There's a very interesting part about the whole understanding between the differences between them. This gave me a really good framework to understand that there's a difference. And it's like, well, okay, what do you know about men? They're supposed to protect and provide, right? How do you know that? They keep the garden, and they make sure that nothing in that garden goes out of order, right? Already a very good framework for it. And what is she? She's a helpmate onto him. A lot of people start to get all in their head about that, but typically women like to pick jobs that always support others. They also pick jobs that are involved around people. So this is, again, not even my own bias. It's just something that I found that confirmed the material that's even coming out now. When I have this framework to work with, I no longer fight against it, and so I can keep going on it. So inherently, one is in support of the other, and the male's role inherently is to be able to protect and provide for not only her, but for also to keep the garden in order, and she helps him along with all of those things. They had a aligned purpose, although very simple, and it is quite simple. When people make it complex, their life starts to suck. Yeah. And the second you make it simple is the second you realize that maybe your ego is hurt because life is not that big of a deal. It's actually quite simple and quite direct and quite to the point and quite beautiful in its simplicity. And so now this is where things start to, I guess, get a little more evolved, like the dark traits of men and women. Right, when the woman's not supporting her partner, and the partner is inherently abandoning what exactly he's there to do. He also has a mission from God. Both of them do. Don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You can eat of the tree of life, though. And I find it's not the tree of death, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so what's the one thing that women would love to know? That there's additional safety that could make them like God and unhurtable. So women are more susceptible to fear. And you can learn that in the Adam and Eve story. Right? Which is, how are they more susceptible to fear? Well, because very simple. The snake doesn't say that you can't touch it. Adam knows for certain he's not going near that thing because that's the one thing he has to do. But he won't do that so simply. If he sees the snake, he'll step on the snake's head. But if the woman sees the snake and presents a proposition, which is, this will make you like God, he doesn't want you to be like that. He's providing a narrative that's far beyond what even Adam provided her. And now what's happening is she's saying, wait, there's a better possibility of my existence. Inherently using a lot of the fear that's going in there. And it's like, well, what's the male downfall? After she eats the fruit, she goes ahead and she takes it to
Adam.
But what does Adam say? when she comes to the fruit? Jack shit. He doesn't say anything because that's the male downfall, convenience. We'd much rather not ask and just go, wow, she's my helpmate. She's made for me. How could she fuck me up, right? And this is where men go really wrong, is they often don't come from the frame and understanding of, if I'm not here to protect the woman and I can't help her understand what she's doing is wrong, then I'm going to inherently fall down with it. And I know that a lot of the time men can even fall into that. She's my wife. We're made for each other. We're soulmates. I promise that. You don't get an opportunity to turn your brain off. You always have to be paying attention, because if you turn your brain off, then you lose the ability to protect and provide for her, which creates all of the disorder that's happening in the emotional way, in the financial way, in the spiritual way, in the mental way, physical way, sexual way, being able to provide in those all aspects and to create stability. So now what gets really interesting is the part after, where they both eat of the fruit and they're both aware that they're naked. The first thing they experience is shame. Whole different point. Now what ends up happening is God comes in there and says, who told you you were naked? What's the first thing Eve says? It was the snake that you placed in the garden, blaming God, right? Which is typically what happens, which is inherently, I became afraid because this is your fault, because it provided something that clearly ran into my wiring that I could be more safe than I initially was, which would have involved trust. But if you could be a single entity like God, then you won't need trust. So now you can learn even more about women. Like, remember, this is conceptual understanding, which means that if I were to tell this story to 8 kids in a room, they would all have a different perspective on it, and they would all be able to contribute based off the male-female dynamic, opposed to teaching people a psychology book. So now here's what happens after that. Adam points it at Eve. Another thing about male nature is they'll always blame the woman. They won't take responsibility for themselves, which is evolved male nature goes, oh shit, I ate the fruit, my bad. Who cares about the snake? I know what I was made to do, and I'm sorry, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what happened.
Yep.
And then, of course, you also see something very interesting, which is, this is where I guess you could say things get a little more nuanced, and a lot of the time people have a hard time interpreting it. There's a particular point in it where they talk about how men will spend the rest of their life working, and there will be thorns coming from the ground in order for them to work. And for women, it's that their craving will be towards their husband, and he will rule over you. And child rearing will fucking kick your ass. So this book is 4,500 years ago, maybe 5,000 years ago. And the story of Adam and Eve really gives you a framework of inherently how men and women function. And I'm sure a lot of people can go ahead and run with it and push their own narratives, but that's not the point. The point is inherently, now that I have the psychological understanding and I work with it professionally, I'm really able to realize that that story is unshakable. So truth be told, I was also raised with incredible parents, and being able to see the dynamic of incredible parents and to see how they can make really strong individuals, not the people that they wanted them to be, individuals, compounded with a biblical framework and an Old Testament framework. I'm not talking about any of the stuff that we grew up with, the midrashim or whatnot. I'm talking about just being able to read the material and go, okay, I'm going to go into life and do my best. I'm not going to say any ands, ifs, or buts. I'm going to do my best. But then you start to realize it starts to play out on the world, and it shaped the way that we think. And it shaped a lot of people's understanding about male-female nature. It affects 95% of the world. All read the same damn book. You could say Adam and Eve. Everybody recognizes it. And it's shaped the way that we think. That's at a core level of my understanding of male-female relationships. Because relationships at the end of the day aren't that complicated. It's just about being able to see that a lot of men blame women, and a lot of women often eat the fruit because it tells them that they will be safer. And that's the problem. And it always goes for the woman. Because when it goes for the woman, then the woman goes for the man, and that's where he falls apart. And that's where a lot of men also stop that, realizing that, hey, you think that things are good in the home. You place a TV screen in the home, and it tells you got to watch out about A, B, and C because your kids will be in danger. She's no longer your partner anymore. She's trying to tell you to adopt a philosophy that could be potentially hurting the family. And then again, most of the time, most men don't even have values. So what I do inherently to help really successful relationships is get men really close to their values so that they can actually uphold them and inherently be able to provide a nest for her in the best way possible, showing that she's safe. Because when a woman knows she's safe, ask any woman, they'll be the happiest thing on planet Earth. They don't need like a mansion with 6 floors and horses and cattle and sports cars. They just need to know that you got your shit. That's it. And then from that point, they're functioning as the feminine, and then there's the masculine, and helping people reintegrate that, because a lot of the time now people are masculinizing, people are feminizing, and it's about bringing them back to that and integrating a lot of their life so that they can have a relationship with what they are. And the day that they do that, they feel so damn good because they're coming back to it. But this time, they are in the equation. It's not like placed on them like a burden. It's a relationship.
That's really interesting. Wow. So you got all of that from Adam and Eve?
Yeah.
Straight up?
Because every
That's
time
crazy.
I read psychology books, I often see that the women that write these books, particularly women, love relationships men don't really gravitate towards relationships. They're going to gravitate towards more of the ability to protect and provide, which a lot of women really like. They like to see that men are emotionally intelligent and that they also value relationships and have the ability to provide stability there. You might notice that nowadays most men don't even know what that is. Like emotional intelligence for them is not taught at school. They're just taught how to make money, and they're probably not that good at it because they lack emotional intelligence. It is very interesting to see that particularly women do gravitate towards relationships and how to create very successful ones. But it all started there. That's the framework, you know? And even you take people like Jung and Freud, they all gave that shit a look and were like, fuck, man, this is pretty wild. It seems to me like this is exactly how we're interacting with each other. And if you know the rules, then you could play the game. And then the more you play the game, that's when you start to get some evolved theories inherently, like what really works in a relationship, the small little nuances, like rewarding all of the things that you love seeing in her, and she rewards all the things she loves seeing in you, that you guys can create an open space. And of course, if the values are there and the attraction is there, then you're just creating a deeper bond. And if you guys learn how to communicate with each other and learn how to engage in conflict and inherently resolve that conflict, then you guys can create a long-lasting relationship. But when you guys understand who you are and what you're susceptible to, then you can love. The point isn't to show you that you're forever fucked. I believe it's to show you that there's an opportunity at real love. And real love doesn't happen unless there's choice. And I think that the biblical story already shows you there's two trees, so you already have choice. And that clearly that both of them were presented with plenty of choice. And it's not because they were just real characters. I think if you look at it more metaphorically, it teaches you more than anything. But they could be real, you know. I'm not to say that they're not. But when we start understanding that the way that we learn things is not through picking up a self-help book and going, aha, I'm a relationship guru now. It's through reading stories. Truth rings a bell, man. When people hear the truth, they know it. It's a part of themselves that they resonate with. Like when I work with a client and I start talking, not speaking, they're like, oh, thanks for the call, man. And they hang up. But when I say something really true, they go, whoa, that was not what I was expecting to hear, but that sits so true to me. What's happening? You know when you hear the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the time people start to go, well, what is the truth? A whole different conversation. But ultimately, that is the framework by which people can really start to understand relationships. Because it shaped the way that you think, and it shaped the way that I think. And if people think that relationships are just putting somebody conveniently into your mold, well, congratulations, you will never have love. You'll have somebody that you forever rule and don't respect. And you conveniently place them in your life as you're miserable, and they are. Because only miserable people who need to attach themselves to others will manipulate others.
It's really interesting. And that's a great answer, too.
Yeah, it's not like, how do I know so much about relationships? Like, I just study them. I mean, truth be told, also, I spent a lot of time talking to women when I was younger. I thought men, when they would talk a lot about stocks and sports and movies, I'd want to blow my brains out. So I was like a very young kid at the time. He was 6, 7, or 8. I would just spend time with the women hearing what they talk about. They talk about children. They talk about relationships. They talk about their dissatisfactions, and they talk about their joys. But all familially related, and that always interests me. You know, stocks, oh, fuck, no, I'm out.
You don't invest? You're not big on it?
I'm not down to talk about it, you know? If we're working and we're here to talk about stocks, let's talk about stocks and end the conversation. But I think the really rich conversations in life are going to be around family, around children, around male-female dynamics, and I think that's why everybody gravitates towards it.
It's true. Honestly, they're more entertaining too, because it's like, I mean, I could talk about, obviously, like, I grew up with sports. I grew up like watching sports, playing them, all that stuff. So it's like I could talk about it for a while.
Sorry, I attacked your values.
No, it's fine. It's not like a value in a sense where it's just like, oh, I need to be able to talk about this. It's like if the conversation goes to that, I can enjoy that conversation, but I also really enjoy like real conversations about like real things.
That's the whole thing. I noticed that when men gravitate together, they typically don't talk about anything real.
But I feel like that's men that don't know each other.
That's my whole point. Women typically will start gravitating towards the serious conversations. Tell me about the guy that you're dating. Tell me about what you want to build in your life. And how are the kids doing? What is the relationship looking like? What's your sex life? Those conversations, and I think all men will agree, they put their hand highest. They're going to go, that's interesting. The truth is that a lot of men don't really have a relationship with their emotional side, so they don't really know how to express these parts of themselves while still maintaining their masculine frame. But you got to be willing to just start already breaking the walls, because if not, then we're talking about stocks, and then we're talking about the hockey game we just watched on the weekend. And there's a certain point where you're not talking about anything real. And it's no offense. You could talk about whatever you like if you really enjoy it.
But it's also like, I feel like, I mean, at least with my experience, right? Like with guy friends and girlfriends, at least with guys, like sports or like anything like surface level would be kind of a way to break the ice. And then like over a little bit of time, like when the friendship would grow fonder and stronger, we talk about very real things. Like we talk about all this stuff. Like with some of my guy friends, like they can be like, oh, like what's up with that girl you're dating? Like how is she? Like whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like we can spill tea, like we could, but it's just like we had to get like closer to do that. Like we don't do that like off rip. I feel like girls, it's easier to do that off rip because like there's some sense of like bond there that it's like it's easier to just get into that quickly.
Well,
With
that's
guys,
the
it
whole
takes a
thing,
second.
is that guys, it takes a second. When you start to become integrated, and another fancy word for that, it means that you no longer want to engage with things that do not interest you. You will become very easily bored by those conversations. And then you will start triggering people because you'll start having your shadow just activating itself. And another fancy word for that is just that when somebody talks about something that you clearly don't want to talk about, you
Like you
already start to
disassociate.
you either disassociate, which is part of people pleasing, or you start to just challenge somebody, and then that's where the conversation happens. I think a lot of men are just very nice to each other. When truth be told, they don't even want to engage in the conversation. And if it's going to be a conversation, let it be rich, let it be full of philosophy, let it be full of psychology, let it be full of life, let it be full of struggles, let it be full of vulnerability. And then it's rich. It's really rich at that point. But yeah, most men are not typically like, I love your hair. So anyways, who are you seeing, right? It's just a difference in approach.
Yeah.
And I honestly, this is something for me, like when I go to Shard Tzedek or like whenever I go to any temple and I notice that immediately people are status checking each other, I get so bored. Like, oh, what do you do for work? Right? Like, oh, no way, did you see the game this week? You're like, where's a revolver? I want to blow my brains out, you know? and I really mean that. And I started realizing how irritated I became in it. And then I stopped actually people pleasing and I started just saying the things that I wanted to say. I'd piss a few people off, but other people are like, oh, we could talk about these things? It's like, absolutely, we can talk about these things. Let's talk about men and women. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about the world. Let's talk about male-female relationships. Let's contribute to that war, because this whole thing that you told me, the money that you made this weekend, it really made me want to gouge my eyes out. Unless it's, of course, for a higher purpose. You know, I think that there's a lot of people like the sound of their own voice, and they just like to engage in nice conversations. When truth be told, we can be talking about real shit, and there's no rules around that. We made those rules up.
Yeah, you got a point there. Like maybe you could talk about real stuff off rip, but
Absolutely.
might take me a second to do that personally, but it's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, no. It's gonna take a minute. You're gonna start realizing,
Yeah.
if you pay attention to it. It's like a nice little thing. Bring your conscious awareness to these things when you have conversations, and notice how you may be disassociating and pulling yourself out of your body. When I help people with social dynamics, I typically try to keep them in their body as much as possible, and so that they can see their thoughts just go through their head too as they're responding to something. Some of those thoughts are intrusive, but the more that you become open to those intrusive thoughts, you become magnetic, because you're not resistant to who you are. You're okay to realize that some people will not like you, but others will love you because you're owning it now. So it's like you find yourself in conversations, pay attention to how some things are irritating you and that you actually don't need to be there, and you could walk out, or you could challenge the person.
It's true. Maybe we'll see. But until then, like we have some questions that people need
Wonderful.
advice about, you know, as much as I can talk about like me and you.
No,
You know,
please
like,
go for it.
You know, now that we're talking about like friendships and like relationships and stuff like that, like these few questions are actually about relationships / dating advice. And I'm gonna start off with like a friendship question, because like we're just talking about that. So this came from Hope. How do you get over friends that just grew apart?
I love that question. Hope, you're wonderful. Here's the things about friends that just grew apart. I think it's always good to realize, it's always good to confront these people, right? Because you want to understand these things. You don't want to take them personally. People do grow apart. It's very simple. Some people just wake up one morning and they're like, I'm just not satisfied with this relationship. I'm walking out. I had a friend that I was friends with for pretty much since I was 17 to 23. A very long friendship. I've also had friends that I've had from the age of 10 to 21. And I'm not joking. These friendships just went like... Typically, it has to do with the fact that people are too afraid to actually tell you the things that they want in their life, and that perhaps maybe you represented a weight to them and vice versa. It's very hard to tell somebody, you just don't represent the adventure that I want in my life. Perhaps that maybe when I hang around you, I don't get to actually put myself in the environments that I want to be in. Maybe you might be bored about somebody. And a lot of the time, people are not confrontational enough to say that, and so that can leave a lot of insecurity and doubt. Friends don't just grow apart because they just grow apart. Believe me, there's a deeper reason behind it. They want something different. And I think that could really make people feel a little insecure sometimes, which is, what's wrong with me? Why did they walk out of it? Truth be told, it's very nuanced. There's a lot of resentment that a lot of people haven't confronted in their relationship, and that they'd much rather walk away because it doesn't have to remind them of the feelings of maybe inadequacy that they maybe have with the other person in front of them. And I noticed that this was the case when a lot of my childhood friends, I mean, some people that you even know, weren't actually communicating how they actually felt about me. And I was like, what? I thought we were like the best friends of all time. You were upset when I'd say those things to you? You were upset when I'd ask for a car ride in high school? You were upset when I'd make these jokes? We'd call you those names? We thought that we were just engaging as friends. Everybody would roast each other. And it's like, these things fell apart because clearly there was a certain point where it hits a boiling point where they walk out at that point and you're left there kind of confused going, what happened? Was there something about me? When truth be told, if somebody's not willing to confront you in that relationship, then it's pretty much game over for that relationship. And then another thing that comes to mind is people don't just grow apart. It's just people are not willing to tell you why they're not interested in the relationship anymore because they don't want to change the way that you perceive them. And it's much easier to walk away. When I realized that I confronted all of my friends that I'm no longer friends with, they all had something to tell me that I did about them that made them literally not be able to look me in the eyes. And sometimes, by the way, avoidance can be a really big problem. Avoidance with one of my very close friends, he just called me the other day, which is just honestly amazing. Really amazing to see that. You can also mend these relationships too. You're just a phone call away from asking what's up. And then they will respect you because it takes courage to ask somebody what's up. And so he called me and I was like, hey, a year later you give me a call after we had that little altercation. I was trying to talk to you. What happened? And they tell you, I felt disrespected when you do these things. And I'm like, what do you mean? That was just part of me trying to love you. I pick and I jab and I poke. And he's like, well, I was just trying not to sabotage the relationship, so I avoided it so I can clear my mind to see whether or not this was you disrespecting me or just being a close friend. And then because of our differences in personality, what did we think it was? It was just a fallout, right? When truthfully, it was actually that he was in avoidance and I was a little more confrontational than he was. So what ended up happening is I started to think that he didn't want to have a conversation with me because I triggered his insecurity or something. But really, he just actually wanted to protect the relationship by thinking that his mind was clear, so he took some time away from it. And then now we get to have this conversation a year later with mutual respect for one another, not wishing each other's doom, but only success, love, and appreciation. And truth be told, the relationships were supposed to leave because you were supposed to make something out of yourself in between. And then maybe these things do come back. And you have to be there with open arms. And the most important part is be there with open arms so that you can welcome them back in as a new person, not the same person, because clearly they walked out because they weren't feeling seen, and vice versa. You can ask that for yourself, of friends that you're no longer with. Something about them no longer intrigued you. And it was easier just to walk away than to say it to their face. This bores me. Pizza on the weekends? Fuck no. I want to make millions and throw dollar bills in Vegas. I want to roll crabs and wear colored sunglasses. I want to get in sports cars and seduce women. Fair enough. But what's easier? Falling apart and saying some people fall apart, or looking them in the eyes and telling them everything that makes you absolutely fucking hate them?
That's a perspective. Because, the way I personally see it, because it's I've had friends that I've gained, I've got friends that I've lost, but, there was no, necessary, fight or anything within our relationship.
Well, then you weren't that close.
Each other. I don't know. Because it's also, the thing is, it's I went to school in New York, right?
Yeah.
So when I was in school in New York, I've had friends that I was able to see every day and stuff like that, and I'm still in touch with them here and there. Mm-hmm. But it's it's not the same because of the distance, and
which is something everybody needs to make, especially with distance.
Yeah.
If you think that you're going to have a perfect long distance relationship with your girlfriend or your friends, you're not. The relationship will change.
Yeah.
Because real friendships are people that I can speak to and engage with. People romanticize the friendship that they had for years. When truth be told, if they need to leave, they are inherently also leaving that relationship too. It doesn't mean that there won't be a chance that they come back and pick it up, but it's something that everybody needs to be willing to do, which is I am leaving my friends because they need me too, and I need them, but I need this more, and that's okay if they hear that. Mm-hmm. I wish that we can still continue and grow this, but if I come back to it and it's not there, that's okay too, because people change.
Yeah. It's the way I looking at it personally, it's life is like a line, right? Mm-hmm. Your life is one line, and other people's lives are other lines also. And you'll have moments where those lines meet and those lines go away. So I feel it's kind of a simile where it's people that were in your life at a certain time were meant to be there for that certain time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also might find it interesting that sometimes when maybe people have had this before, it's just that it doesn't really help you understand, which is why it's really good to be confrontational. I always implement that, Mm-hmm. Even one of my very close friends, you know him too, he left in New York, he's going to the law school, he has a girlfriend. I wish him nothing but the best. But the people that were there when I was crying my eyes out because I was going through serious fucking struggles, those people are my friends. And a lot of the time people think that their friends are just their acquaintances or people that they've been around for long times. No, those things deserve respect. Those things deserve appreciation. Those things deserve time. But your friends are pretty much your family. They're there when you fall, and they celebrate with you when you win. And they will do anything they can to be there for both. And so I think I just have a higher standard for my friendships to not let those things just fall out. Because the second I'm not getting the communication I need from somebody that I love, it's motherfucker, where are you? What's going on? Talk to me. And then it's, you did this one thing last night, it pissed me off. Okay, great. Now we're having a conversation. I'm glad we're here.
Well, it's good you have that perspective because it's like, I mean, friendships are meant to be something like at a deeper level than like just acquaintances.
Absolutely. You know, I really realized that the friends that I grew up with, the people that I had in Valley Torah in high school, were not people that actually were friends with me. We would share so much time together and confuse the time and familiarity with friendship. That's not friendship. Friendship is an accumulated vision. It's accountability. It's the person you think about before you're about to make a mistake that you told them you didn't want to make, right? You told, I'm not hitting up my ex. And he goes, well, you're not hitting up your ex and I'm proud of you. High five, right? And then now your ex hits you up. Who are you thinking about? Your friends. And it's like, well, those are actually your friends. There are people that are building with you. There are people that when you tell them the parts of yourself that may be unacceptable to a lot of people, they go, are you kidding me? Let's do it together. And they'll tell you shit to your face. And they'll tell you the things that they don't like about you. And they won't wait till tomorrow to tell you it. They'll tell you it the second it happens. Because those people really care about the relationship. When we let those like, ugh, you did this thing that pissed me off at the party. You didn't say hi to me. You talked to that girl. You avoided me. What, do you not want to be seen with me? Right? That's a good question to have. And so what ends up happening is that when you create this like realization that friends is something that is so damn important. And you better have people that are close to you in your life. Because if you don't have friends, you have a really hard life. I know people surrounded by people left and right. They don't have friends. And of course there's, oh, what's up, man? Been super busy. Not how that works. You know, friends are people you just shoot a text to and you're like, I want to see you right now. What could we do?
True. No, but it's like life could be crazy too. So it's like, I mean, maybe you won't see them 24/7, but when you do see them.
It's never like, even take Alex, for example. If he leaves for a week, he travels a lot. When we come back, we have to reintegrate each other because so much happens.
Yeah.
And by the way, I get closer with other people when he leaves. And that's something
crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah, I get closer with other people. And that's actually how life should work. I find maybe parts about myself when he's not there. I find myself hanging out with other friends, getting coffee with them in the morning, going out with them at night, getting dinner with them. And I'm like, wow, this is so crazy that when you start showing up for your life with 100% presence, you're no longer like, I miss you, FaceTime me. It's a dangerous world. The virtual world is a dangerous world because it stops you from moving your life forward. You know, the day where you just said, it's okay, babe, let's do long distance for 2 months, is the day you burned a lot of bridges in your life for the next 2 months. It's a hard thing to tell somebody. This presence that I have is so damn valuable. I give 100% to the people in front of me, and you're not there right now. If you come back here, that's great. If you don't, no guarantee. And I think that maybe it can sound a little cutthroat, but it can really help people maintain their integrity. And I think even more important, it can help them maintain the value of their own life so that when somebody says they're going to leave for 2 months, maybe they'll have a fight about it, opposed to saying FaceTimes are enough. FaceTimes are not enough when you're somebody with real needs. And that's like a hard thing for people to understand, is that you have real needs. And particularly for you, Hope, you may even realize that a lot of the time people are not getting their needs met, so they'll just walk away. But it's okay to go ahead and communicate what your needs are and seem like a piece of shit while doing it.
Fair enough. And speaking of people's needs, right? This question comes from Instagram handle Portodo El Mundo 7.
Yes, Portodo. Yeah.
So he's curious, like, because like people have their own needs, like in their life, they have their own wants, and he wants to know, how would you know when a woman is not interested in you? Like, what are the signals that you're not giving her the wants she wants?
I think it's very simple. If you haven't set your intentions clear, you're playing the thinking game. A lot of men think that they have to hide a lot of themselves to be liked. The truth is you need to do the contrary. And there's an expression. It might be a little bold, but if she likes what you're offering, she'll take her clothes off. And that's not just because she'll get naked and you guys will hook up. But the truth is that if you actually owned a lot of who you are and set your intentions about what you want from somebody, she's more than likely to communicate yes or no. Now, this is something that's very important for men. The more likely, the less you perform and please, and the more open and straightforward you are about the conversation, the more value you're displaying. When you start to weasel around, when clearly your intentions aren't, hey, can I pet your dog? But hey, what's up? What's your name? And then going, what's your number? You'll have a far better time realizing that most girls aren't friend zoning you. You're actually putting yourself in a position to where they are friend zoning you, and you think that you got an angle. And then after you've done your whole performance trick, you go, what? She's not interested in me? And then you throw a tantrum, right? The truth is it's about actually being able to set your intentions. Allow them to reject you. Tell them what you want. It's okay. Not everybody is for you. Maybe you have a hard time hearing no, and that's why you avoid that. Because truth be told, most women don't want to be friends with men. They're looking for something that they want to fulfill them in a relationship. Maybe they're single. Maybe they're with somebody, right? You don't know that. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable. You don't know that.
It goes back to just keeping it real.
It just goes back to keeping it real.
Just got to keep it real.
And I find it very interesting, like, oh, why am I getting friend zoned all the time? It's like, because you're not setting your intentions. And by the way, not only are men making this mistake, it's killing them. The reason why you're getting friend zoned is because you aren't setting your intentions. And let's just say you do set your intentions. You agree to spend time with them under the notion of friendship because of your scarcity issues. And then, of course, you're not getting anything back because she tested you. And, of course, you're like, I set a boundary and said we're not friends. And then you continue to hang out with her as friends. So what are you? You're just friends because you communicated something with your actions, not just your words. And then now it showed her another thing, which your words don't mean shit. And then now she doesn't respect you. So you're definitely not.
End of the day, you became a sucker.
At the end of the day, you become a sucker.
That's all it is, really.
Yeah.
In order to be a high quality man, this question comes from Victoria. And this should probably go to like the guys who are looking to be high quality men. Where do they usually frequent?
Frequent as in like hang out?
Like hang out, like where are they normally, like what do they tend to like do with their day?
I know that this is very interesting. I think the term high quality, high value, all of these buzzwords, right, that people can associate that to. I think that the second you stop trying to look for it and realize that they're everywhere, just your magnet's off, because they're there at the grocery store. They're there shopping for some pants at Lululemon or shorts, you know. They're at the crystal shop, for God's sake. They're at the library. They're actually at the bar or the club occasionally. They're at the restaurant next to you. And the truth is that you can't recognize them. So that's a better place to start. It's not where do they gravitate. It's what do they look like to you, and then accept that they're everywhere. And then now you no longer try to find yourself in certain environments of, quote, status, which are going to have a lot of predatory men there. Instead, start realizing that actually they're human beings, quality or not. We all eat food. We all drink water. We all enjoy sunshine and enjoying some days at the beach. When you start to go like, okay, where do they frequent? I truthfully believe the best question you could ask yourself is, what are they to me? And then when you understand yourself, well, that's what a high value person is. Remember, you ask an Orthodox Jewish girl, she might have a different answer.
Synagogue.
Yeah, that's right. She'll say, where does she find her high value male? At yeshiva, right? Mm-hmm. Where does the club girl find her high value guy? At Poppy on a Saturday night. Yep. Right? So the whole point is you need to be really familiar with your values and what you determine is to be a guy of quality. And then the environments speak for themselves. Because people congregate on what you call core values. That's where people meet. If people congregate around family and around holidays, where are you going to meet your wife? Go to a Rosh Hashanah event or a Passover thing, right? She's more likely there because you guys are meeting on core values. So there's less conversation to have about who you are. And then at that point, you could recognize them based off quality.
That's probably also why, like, really, really religious Orthodox Jews, like, that's probably why they get married very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, they meet on something that their values just align, like, right away, and there's not really too much to, like, figure out after that.
There's two parts to that game. One of them is you have to have a relationship with your values in order to believe them. And a lot of people don't understand the pressure that comes with family and going against your community about beliefs that you don't believe in because you'll be ostracized and excommunicated. And you will also have to shut down a lot of the authentic parts of yourself because that might be too much for other people to handle when it comes to setting you up. So it's not a risk-free system. They tell you it's a risk-free system. If you're going to have two people who are shut down by shame by the end of a matchmaking system, those aren't a happy couple. They're a couple that got married, sure. But ask them if they're happy that they're married, right? So it's also really, there's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But I like that question. It's like, where do they frequent? It's like everywhere. What do they look like to you? Because they're everywhere. Pay attention. Yeah. Observe a little bit. Listen a little bit more. It's probably the best advice you can give anybody.
This question now comes from Nassim because he's asking, it's actually funny, he just put trust issues. Like, that's what he submitted, trust issues. So I'm going to guess he meant that in a way, like, as in, how do you deal with them?
I think trust issues are something really big, and I think a lot of people need to understand how serious they are. They will not allow you to heal. They will not allow you to build anything. They will keep you in a position to where the world is demonized and you're the hero, which will create a massive ego. People with trust issues are burdensome. And so you have to remember that if you have trust issues, you're a burden to other people that want to work with you. So there's a few things to it. And inherently, to create a world where you can trust people is understand the paradigm that you live in. Another word for paradigm is inherently the reality that you see. Remember, if you've been fucked over by people a lot, are you somebody that's easy to fuck over, which is something you need to consider yourself? Or are people bad, which is also something you need to consider yourself? So when you can go ahead and look at your trust issues, realizing, well, wait, maybe I was conveniently putting them into a place where it met my needs immediately, and I was so desperate to meet those needs that I trusted predatory people, and then they hurt me. Now you've learned something about yourself. And the other part is realizing, are there kind people out there? And how do you know what a kind man or a kind woman is versus a manipulative, tyrannical one? And the truth is you have to start getting in touch with your intuition, a judgment of character. And the way that you can trust anybody is based that they follow through with the things that they say. It's in the small things that they do. Hey, let's meet here at this time. They meet there at that time. At that time. Being able to see people's behavior often allows you to accumulate and build trust, that they say things and follow through with them. If I said that I'm a religious Jew and perhaps didn't wear a yarmulke, then maybe there's some cognitive dissonance that I'm having, right? It makes me less trustworthy because I say that I'm religious, but I don't associate with the religion. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time we think that we can't, that trust is like, how do you trust people? Pay attention to them, listen to them and observe them, and remove your desperate needs from the table so that you can allow them to meet them for you. And then you could start telling the difference. But when you're desperate, man, you got the blindfolds on. And when the blindfolds are on, you're getting hurt by the predatory types because they know you can't see and because they have eyes and you don't. And every time they go, what does it look like? Oh, they're like, oh, I'll tell you what it looks like. And they'll take everything from you. And I think the most important thing to understand is if you want to heal and you're somebody that does have trust issues, relational wounds require relational healing. So you're going to have to put yourself into a position to where you do trust somebody, right? Like, why does it help so much when somebody works with me? They have to trust me. If they don't trust me, there's no coaching.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the second they can trust me, they can see that I'm kind and I'm good, and all I want to do is get the best for them. I'm not trying to push a narrative. I want the best for them. I want them to be the most them. I want them to be the most connected. And then they're like, damn, there are good people out there. And I believe that for anybody that's listening to this, I think that the most important thing you can do is realize that there are people with trust issues. Show them that there is good. Help them so that they can start building and healing in their life.
It's good. I mean, end of the day, it's like, if you want to trust people again, you're going to have to like make that first jump.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to have to trust people again because like to think that you could live in a world without people, drugs will do a really great job for that. Drugs will do a great job. Drugs, sex, food, sublimination in every form and fashion.
Yeah, pretty much. But, speaking on like growing and like continuing like a healthy mindset, we actually have a few questions that are more catered to that specifically. So this question comes from Ariella, and she asks, what would you advise people who want to go to a life coach or pretty much do anything like to help better their mindset or better their life, but they're vulnerable to taking that first step?
Well, so it sounds like somebody's having a hard time making decisions. What's really important is you need to feel heard. And this is for anybody that's looking for a life coach, a therapist, a counselor, a program, whatever it is. You have to feel heard. If the person does not make you feel like this will solve their problem, don't work with them. A lot of people like to sell you on the thing that they have. They can tell you great stories. They can be super performative and get you in a super big adrenaline high and then help you make a decision. But the truth is that a good salesman and somebody that's a good coach that wants to help you work with them has to really establish whether or not they can help you first. Because if they can't help you and then they sell you on something, you feel like you were literally just, completely exploited. Conned, yeah. And he's kind of going there like, well, it was your fault. You made this decision. And then now you trust your decisions less. So it's really important that when you make these decisions, you get as much information as you can get. And if he can't really give you that information, then he's clearly not somebody that knows what he's doing. Because sometimes that information is, you have a very particular issue and actually don't specify in that. Yeah, I wish you all the best. I actually know this other guy. Go work with him. He's great. He works exactly with mindset coaching. Amazing. Send me his number. I'll reach out to him. Perfect. The truth is we can't help everybody. And there are some people that have a hard time making a decision. Decision making requires somebody that's going to help you make that decision, and that you need to communicate that to them, which is, I feel like this is the right fit. I feel like this is the right program. I feel like you're the right guy. I'm shaking right now. Maybe realize that your whole life you've had a hard time making decisions, and that because you have a hard time making decisions, you know that decisions have massive consequences. And maybe every time you make a decision, you come in as a perfectionist. And if you come in as a perfectionist, you can't make decisions because perfectionists never change. And maybe what you're afraid of is changing, and now is the day that you do it. Why is today better than tomorrow or next month? Truth be told, you got to make it today. You just got to make sure that you feel heard, that you feel seen, you feel recognized, and do it today. Do it today.
Yeah, and I'm happy you brought up the salesmanship stuff because it's actually funny. Like, in order to be a good salesman, which I think everyone needs nowadays, because like, if you want to do anything in life, you have to sell yourself at least. Let alone other things. And like a good trait in a salesman is that they hear the client. And when the client says like for example, when you're selling something and the client says, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't think so, you have to be like, oh, well, why aren't you sure?
Yeah, address the concerns.
You got to address the concerns like specifically. So it's like, in order to be a good salesman, you have to hear the person like out. Absolutely. In order to actually make the sale. So if they're not listening.
Yeah, if that's also the other thing. You could also tell them too. And when I used to do sales for my business, I would just tell people, I'd say, hey, we don't need to do this. I just want you to be as honest with me as possible because we're taking up each other's time here.
I don't even know if I can help you. Or I don't even know if I can help you. And it's like, wouldn't that be the worst thing? And I would just even address their concern even more, that you went through with a decision that you didn't actually believe that can help you. I said, it's just really important that we could be as honest as possible. No pressure here. You can also say no. And then people start telling you things because you're disarming them. You're allowing them to communicate what they need. And sometimes I hear people's story. I'm like, you're the wrong place, dude. But thanks for sharing. I'm glad I can hear you out.
Speaking of that, this next question comes from Parsa. She asked, do people change, and is it the right thing to do?
People absolutely change. It's actually crazy when you realize people change, because you may be able to forgive them. And what's also crazy too, people change so much to the point that you can no longer demonize them to run away from the emotions that you felt with them. When you realize that people change, it opens up a part of your heart realizing that you can no longer hold on to any hate. People do change. The people that have hurt you are no longer the people that have hurt you a couple years down the line. The people that refuse to change are people that are suffering so enormously, you don't even need to worry. And I experienced this in my life, which is not only do people change, they want to give you love that you never thought that you would have ever got from them. They change so much. They want to be able to hear you out and actually let you say what you have to say to them. I never thought that was the case. I thought that people would always like to weaponize it against you. It's always you versus them. But it turns out that forgiveness is a real thing. And when you forgive somebody, maybe perhaps you were wrong too. And then it's not about whether or not that they've changed. And a lot of people like to say that, oh, they've changed. Okay, well, come on, chill. You're utilizing this to make bad decisions in your life. You'll know when somebody changed. It's when they make an effort to show you that so that they can feel safe with you again.
And when I saw this question, I actually really liked it because I saw this and I was like, of course I did. Because when I was younger, like a kid, I used to be like a total dork that would quote funny all the time. And that was like my idea of humor, And it's like, eventually I grew up and I realized, it's like maybe repeating someone else's joke 10 times in a row to someone's face is not the right way to make friends.
Yeah, but I think it's a start.
Nah, it was a start, but it's like eventually it's like I like chilled out a little bit and I kind of realized who I was. And then once I found out who I was myself, I'm here now.
Amen. Here you are.
So it's like, it's like, of course people
change.
change.
You have changed a lot. You have changed a lot.
You've seen it personally?
Absolutely. You don't mask anymore.
You think I used to mask?
Absolutely.
How so?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. You're funny.
In a sense.
But you also want it to be funny because you understand how that was something that you could really associate value to, right?
I guess.
So you would usually come in being funny, and then that would irritate some few, but others who would tolerate you would listen to the funny and enjoy it, and those would be your friends. Now you no longer try to be funny. You just let it come out. It's if you're not feeling like you want to make jokes, you don't make jokes. You trust yourself. You trust that you're worth value, something of value. And that's why you no longer mask with the humorous font or the banter or the testing. Very interesting. Yeah, you have changed. And there's more to you, and that makes you more complex. You're not playing the same game.
I don't remember signing up for a session. I didn't. That's crazy.
Nah, dude, I'm the worst to be on with a date. You think like, oh, he's the dating coach. He's great to be on. Sometimes I'm not even having a conversation.
Just analyzing.
And the truth be told, I like to really see how much somebody's willing to tell me, not how much I can pick up off of them. But I'll ask questions to see how open they are about those parts of themselves. And I think that vulnerability and openness, and when somebody can trust me, it's the most attractive thing in the world. Because I promise you, I trust me. I made myself somebody that I'd be worth trusting.
That's good. And you also talk a lot about being confrontational.
Oh yeah.
Right? Which is a value to you.
Mm-hmm.
So Barty, I hope I pronounced that question right. I hope I didn't butcher that. I'm so sorry if I did. But Barty asked, how can I be confrontational without being offensive?
I think that you need to accept that you're going to be offensive when you say anything about yourself. And that if you can't make peace with that people will see you as a confrontational bitch and they will dislike you, then maybe you should start treating others with kindness and be nice to yourself. And AKA, that's called being cruel to you and nice to others. When you begin to realize that's the alternative, you no longer care about being nice. You care about being able to communicate what was seriously making you screech inside. And that was the same thing for me. It was like I'd be around a lot of my friends and they would do a lot of things and I would keep my mouth shut because I wanted to maintain the relationships and not be perceived as the guy that's being a nuance. But the truth is that you can actually start creating things that are real because the basis and foundation of all relationships is truth. So the truth is how are you feeling about the situation? Oh my God, you're pissed off. Then why are you repressing it? There's no relationship here. There's them getting what they want and you feeling sorry for yourself that everybody in the world is always out there to beat you. That's not the case. The case is that you need to be somebody that's willing to be seen that way. And by the way, here's the good part. When you're willing to play the fool, you will get better and better at confronting people. And here's a really good way to do this. And I tell this to anybody. It'll really help you. Set a frame. Oh my God. I'm really sorry. I made the wrong plans. I said that we were going to go to this restaurant, and you said that we're going to go to this restaurant. I said yes. Bro, I'm so sorry I said yes to that. That's my fault. AKA setting a frame, being vulnerable, allowing them to realize you're not there to beat them. You're on the same side. I'd rather kill myself than get Italian food. And then now you're no longer offensive. You're just being honest. Why? Well, because you set a frame for your confrontation. You could also be loving with it. Eden, I think you're the best. I love how you picked the place and a time and that you said, let's all go there. But if you tell me we're going to charcoal tonight, I'd rather blow my brains out. Right?
Yep.
And so what I ended up doing was actually not telling him I'm not on his side. I'm telling him I'm on his side and I'd like to be considered. And then I'm not offensive anymore, because a lot of the time people immediately go, well, confrontation? No, I'm not going, bro. And then now you're like, what the fuck, dude? Wait, you're rejecting me as a friend? I thought we were going to get dinner, right? And so a lot of the time that can trigger people. But when you set a frame and you open up and you become vulnerable, you don't become offensive at all. You become real, and people really appreciate the fact that you're somebody that also wants themselves to be considered. Then they respect you. And I know that's a really hard thing, but what if I say what I want? Won't other people walk away? That's not true. The more barriers to entry you create, the more people respect the thing that's on the other side of the barrier. The less barriers to entry they have, they go, it's useless. Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's good to set a frame, because it's like, I guess that's a way to be less offensive, to like filter yourself out.
Yeah, of course. I don't think you can't say anything that you want to say. I really wish that my friends would start doing that more to show me that they're on their side. I love you. I think you're amazing. This is not because of some sort of religious belief. I just don't want to eat at that place. Okay, cool. Where do you want to eat then? I'm open to suggestions. You might even be shocked to see how people are so flexible with you. Mm-hmm. You go, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the job. I love everything that you put. I love that my hours are flexible. I'd say, unfortunately, I can't do $22.50 an hour. I want to be able to do something like 30 so that I can actually really show up and contribute and give as much as I can to this. I really think it's an absolute honor to be working here with you. And I just don't want to be doing something that doesn't feel like it's worth my rate. Is that something we can do? And they'll go, whoa, yeah. I want you to work, and I want you to work hard. And if $8 more an hour is going to make you work hard, welcome to the job. By the way, guess what if they say no? You go, shit, I could open my mouth. That's amazing. I could say what I want. That's amazing. If I kept doing this, maybe some people would believe me. Maybe I'd believe me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, end of the day, it's all about building confidence for yourself at least, So, Naftali, pretty much the way this show works is, like I said before, I always ask the first question, but I always ask the last question as well. And that last question is always, if you had to give one piece of advice to the people watching, what would you say?
Well, for starters, I'd say you're all right. I think that a lot of people need to hear that. I'm saying that because I've worked with so many people, and I realize that they just maybe lack that belief that they were all right. You are okay, and you got it. And I think that anybody who's alive deep down knows that. If they're hanging in there, they definitely know that. I believe that a lot of the time people are looking for guidance. They're looking for support. And the best thing you guys can consider is understand that you're a pendulum. You're seeking balance, and it's swinging one way or the other. You have to be really honest with yourself about what you need. And it's really hard to do that because one guy tells you 5 a.m. Ice baths. The other guy says wake up when you want to wake up. So when you're really honest with yourself and relative about what you want in your life, remember that everybody has an ideal that they're trying to achieve. That ideal isn't bigger than you, because the ideal will never be achieved if it's not for you. So the best advice I can give to people is do not kill yourself emotionally. Because a lot of people are doing it, and they're doing it in the name of success. And unfortunately, success owns you, which means that you are not successful. When you begin to realize that you've attached yourself to all of these things that have more value than you, even though you're the ones that bring it into reality, that's where you make the big mistake. I believe the most important thing that somebody can do is completely unleash themselves so that they can integrate it into a higher purpose. When you find that higher purpose and you have all of the fuel and capacity behind it, you have all the passion in life. And it's no longer about knowing all the answers. It's about accepting the uncertainty. And I believe that when you're there, you're truly living, because you're no longer living worshiping the ideal. You're living integrating it, knowing that you will achieve it. The more that you consider yourself and that ideal, as you bring the two together, opposed to demonize them both and run away.
Don't beat yourself up, ladies and gentlemen. Naftali, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on, man.